Today's Korean news delivered by InGilBang. President Yoon Seok-Yeol's wife, Kim Hye-kyung, recently conducted private volunteer work at the site of the flood. According to the political circles in the presidential office on the 24th, Mrs. Kim recently visited the sites in the metropolitan area, where the damage was severe after the torrential rains on the 8th, met the victims, and volunteered such as cleaning. It is reported that Mrs. Kim has been doing private volunteer work 2 to 3 times over 2 weeks, and she recently mobilized only a minimal number of bodyguards to help with cleaning. It is said that there were many residents who did not recognize Mrs. Kim at her site because she covered her face with her mask. An official from the presidential office said, "I did volunteer work on a private schedule, not for the purpose of publishing a report. We do not know the specific details." Last Lady Kim Hye-kyung greets her new police family at the 310th graduation ceremony held at the Central Police School in Cheongju, North Chungcheong Province, on the 19th Yonhap News. Earlier, First Lady Kim has been minimizing her public appearances since she accompanied President Yoon on a trip to Spain to attend the NATO summit on the 1st of last month. She recently attended the 310th graduation ceremony held at the Central Police School in Cheongju, North Chungcheong Province on the 19th, when she attended with President Yoon. She also said that Mrs. Kim had a separate private meeting on the day she was there. Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi attended the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between Korea and China in Beijing, China. Compared to the 20th anniversary event 10 years ago, when Vice President Xi Jinping attended the 20th anniversary event, the rank was lower. It is interpreted as a result of reflecting the current Korea-China relations where conflict and cooperation intersect. According to a Beijing diplomat on the 24th, China has selected a deputy prime minister or higher as a major participant in the ceremony to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between Korea and China. In particular, at the 20th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties held on August 31, 2012, then Vice President Xi Jinping, who was ranked 6th in power and the next Chinese leader, made a surprise appearance. 8 minister-level officials, including Yang Jiechi, a member of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China in charge of foreign affairs, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China, also attended. As a result, the level of the commemorative ceremony has increased, such as changing the location of the commemoration ceremony from the Great Banjin of Kyumao to the Great Hall of the People. The Great Hall of the People is where the most important political events such as the summit are held. Vice President Xi showed off his friendship by cutting the welcome cake for the dinner. It shows how much the next Chinese leadership valued Korea at the time. At the 25th anniversary ceremony held on August 24, 2017, when relations between the two countries came to an end due to the deployment of the THAAD high-altitude missile defense system, China sent the vice chairman of the Guangdong People's Political Consultative Conference to match the assortment. At that time, Wang Kong was a member of the Politburo, and had a higher rank than Wang Yi, who is currently a member of the State Council. Some argue that it is difficult to see that Wang's attendance is contrary to previous precedents because Wang is above the ministerial level. There is also an analysis that it is an unavoidable decision taking into account the quarantine situation. Currently, China is adhering to the principle of zero corona and refraining from large-scale events as much as possible. It is also true that high-ranking officials are reluctant to expose to the outside as the 20th National People's Congress of the Chinese Communist Party, which will determine Xi's third consecutive term, is just around the corner. However, on the historic day of the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Korea and China, President Yoon Seok-Yeol and President Xi did not have a video conference or even a phone call. There are many interpretations of what it means. Earlier, on June 22, 2015, at a ceremony to mark the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Korea and Japan, former President Park Geun-hye and former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe appeared as major participants at events in Seoul and Tokyo and expressed their will to improve relations, even though the conflict between the two countries reached a climax over the issue of comfort women for the Japanese military. The Global Times, a state-run media, pointed out that Korea's trade deficit with China for 3 consecutive months, along with concerns about the THAAD issue, and cultural disputes are casting a shadow on the bilateral exchanges celebrating the 30th anniversary. It was found that the Deputy Commander of the Korea-U.S. Combined Forces Command, a 4-star general of the Korea Army, is in command of the Korea-U.S. joint exercise that began on the 22nd. This is the first time that a South Korean general, rather than the commander of the USFK, who concurrently serves as the commander of the Korea-U.S. Combined Forces in the United Nations Command, has overseen the entire schedule of the joint exercise. In announcing this fact on the 23rd, USFK said, as the defense ministers of the Republic of Korea and the United States agreed in December of last year, this exercise is to shift missions and responsibilities. At the time, the two ministers agreed to carry out the verification of the full operational capability, which is the second of the 3 stages of the evaluation of the combined operational capability for the transfer of wartime operational control, which has been delayed due to the influence of COVID-19, during the joint exercise in the second half of this year. The combined operational capability evaluation, which consists of the Basic Operational Capability IOC, the first stage, the Fully Operational Capability FOC, the second stage, and the FMC verification of the third stage, is a kind of evaluation for evaluating the ability of the Korea military to command and operate the future CFC. It's a mock exam when verifying basic operational capabilities through joint exercises. In the second half of 2019, the South Korean military commanded only one day of each of the two scenario exercises, consisting of a repulsion/defense Part 1 and a counterattack Part 2, and the U.S. military commanded the rest of the schedule. On the other hand, in the case of the fully operational capability to be implemented during this UFS period, both the first and second part schedules are led by Ahn Byung-seok, Deputy Commander of the Combined Forces Command. In this regard, CFC Commander Paul Nakamura emphasized, for the first time in history, the Deputy Commander of the Combined Forces Command will lead the future as the Commander of the Combined Forces Command. In this regard, some believe that the full operational capability evaluation will have a significant impact on the UPCON transition schedule, but this is not the case. A government official, who requested anonymity, said, the Moon Jae-in administration advertised as if it would be possible to immediately determine the UPCON transition year once the full operational capability evaluation was completed, but in reality, more conditions must be met and the ROK and the United States agree to determine the transition year for UPCON. He added, in particular, as the current government is refocusing on conditions rather than time for UPCON transition, it has become difficult for the third stage of verification to have a significant meaning. The conditions for the transition of wartime UPCON agreed upon by the ROK and the United States include securing the core military capabilities of the ROK military to lead the ROK-U.S combined defense, the ROK military's initial essential response capabilities against North Korean nuclear and missile threats, and the security environment of the Korean peninsula and the region suitable for the transition of wartime UPCON. There are three major among them. It is pointed out that the evaluation of the combined operation capability of the South Korean military command is only a detailed condition. In terms of core military capabilities, the South Korean military's weapon system and power must be comprehensively considered, and the key is whether the U.S. recognizes it. In particular, some observers observe that it is not easy to meet the conditions for a considerable period of time, as the South Korean military can acquire and operate it independently to some extent in the 2030s in the case of a reconnaissance satellite, which is an essential condition for surveillance capability against North Korea. A military source said, conditions are conditions, but in reality, the will of the government is more important. The results of the FOC evaluation of full operational capability, the second stage of the training, will be reported to the ministers of both countries at the Korea-U.S Security Annual Meeting to be held in Washington this fall. After that, working groups of the military authorities of both countries analyze it and decide whether the verification passed or not. A final decision is expected early next year, according to multiple military sources. Amid growing controversy as President Yoon Suk-yeol's external schedule leaked through the fan cafe of MRS. At a meeting with reporters at the Yongsan presidential office on the 24th, a high-ranking official from the presidential office said, it is estimated that the leak occurred during the event of the People's Power Party member. We will find out if this has happened and will do our best to prevent it from happening again. Then, he bowed his head, saying, I'm sorry, this shouldn't happen again. The controversy started with the Facebook Keonhee Love account. A user commented on a post with notice. President Yoon Suk-yeol visits Daegu's Somun Market at 12 noon on the 26th. We ask for a lot of participation and publicity. Typically, the president's calendar is open to a limited number of the president's secretaries and reporters. In particular, schedules held outside the Yongsan presidential office are more limitedly disclosed. Because there is a security problem. Of course, the controversial schedule was announced to reporters on the 19th by the presidential office. However, the location was not specifically disclosed. Because of this, the reporters from the presidential office took the procedure to protest to the president's office, and decided to cancel the embargo of President Yoon's Daegu's Somun Market schedule. The background to the leak has not yet been clearly revealed. The schedule was decided about a month ago, but it was cancelled due to weather conditions, and it is said to be a rescheduled schedule 2 to 3 weeks ago. A high-ranking official from the presidential office said, I heard that there were not many party members who wanted to attend at the Daegu city party level, so the schedule was well known. I think it might have been because the party members were trying to add their hearts to the party's events rather than intentionally, he said. The Presidential Security Service has contacted the user who posted the comment, deleted the comment, and is investigating the details of the circumstances. However, it seems that there will be many difficulties in grasping the exact circumstances because it is difficult in reality to conduct a forced investigation. The Presidential Security Service said, we are seeking various methods to determine the circumstances, and we cannot disclose the details. As Justice Minister Han Dong-hoon celebrated his 100th day in office, he was baptized with a flower basket ridden by his supporters to restore the prosecutor's investigative authority to the inspector uniform. Some in the political circles also argue that it is not a strange parallel theory with the supporters of then-President Yoon Suk-yeol, who was in opposition to the former Justice Minister Chu Mi-ae in 2020. According to the political and legal circles on the 25th, Minister Han Dong-hoon was baptized with a wreath from his supporters on the way to work on the 24th, the 100th anniversary of his inauguration. The wreath contained messages of support for a minister, such as "Thank you for wearing the inspector uniform, thank you for your courage and dedication," and "The minister's 100 days were the pride of the Korean people." Minister Han drew attention by replying with a smile to the flower basket in front of the Ministry of Justice at the government complex in Gwacheon. In particular, before entering the office building, while looking around the flowers, the media camera caught the conversation with the delivery man who delivered flowers just in time. Earlier in 2020, when the so-called Cheoyun conflict between President Yoon Seok-Yeol and former Minister Chu Mi-ae reached a climax, supporters of both camps sent wreaths and sent messages of support. In front of the Supreme Prosecutor's office in Sokhodong, Seoul, wreaths of supporters of President Yoon were poured out, and wreaths of supporters of former Minister Chu were poured out at the Ministry of Justice. Recently, the Ministry of Justice has expanded the scope of corruption crimes and economic crimes again by amending the enforcement ordinance ahead of the enforcement of the law to completely deprive the prosecution of investigation rights. When the Inspection and Completion Act goes into effect, the crimes that prosecutors can directly initiate investigations will be reduced from the current 6 major crimes of corruption, economy, public officials, elections, defense projects, and catastrophic crimes to major crimes prescribed by presidential decree, such as corruption and economic crimes. However, the amendment to the presidential decree re-stipulated that some of the public officials and election crimes that disappeared under the provisions of the act could be investigated by the prosecution. On the 24th, the Democratic Party of Korea called for impeachment of Minister of Justice Han Dong-hoon. According to the Ministry of Justice, the enforcement ordinance for the restoration of prosecutors' investigative powers, which was announced by the Ministry of Justice, violated the law. Rep. Kim Young-min, a hardliner from the Democratic Party, said on the radio that day, "I think we should go beyond the suggestion of dismissal and even impeachment." Rep. Kim said, "They are wearing fake clothes of the formal rule of law and hiding their true political desires in them." The Democratic Party's position is that it is illegal because the Ministry of Justice's enforcement decree nullified the examination and overhaul bill that was enforced in April. Rep. Jang Kyung-tae proposed the Enforcement Decree Control Act, which allows the National Assembly to take measures to suspend or lose the effect of the government's enforcement ordinances, and to withhold fear. It is intended to suspend the actual implementation of the enforcement ordinance of the Ministry of Justice. Rep. Kim Young-bi of the Democratic Party has also proposed a bill to relocate the Ministry of Justice from Gwacheon to Sejong. The goal is to relocate the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, but as the Yoon Seok-yeol administration promised to abolish it, the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family actually came up with the word Han Dong-hoon Exile Act targeting the Ministry of Justice. In the political circles, it has been said that the allegation of impeachment of Minister Han Dong-hoon and the relocation of the Ministry of Justice clearly shows the DPRK's phobia of Justice Minister Han Dong-hoon. Democratic Party lawmaker Ko Min-jung sued comedian Kim Young-min directly to the police for defaming his reputation, but was notified of the disposition of no charges. According to a police official on the 25th, the Busan-haeundae police station closed the complaint with the disposition of not guilty, saying that it was difficult to admit the charges after examining the complaint of the late member Kim Young-min, a comedian of the 23rd KBS recruitment. Kim Young-min, who had raised awareness as a character of eunuch who lost the function of a man serving the king at a gag concert, posted a briefing of the then Blue House spokesman Ko Min-jung on his YouTube channel 20 Minutes in February on July 16, 2019. Yoon Seok-yeol's declaration of support. In a briefing, spokesperson Go said, "Candidate Seok-yeol Yoon has been fighting corruption during his tenure as a prosecutor, and has demonstrated his tenacity that is not shaken by the external pressures of power. He has been highly trusted by the public as well as within the prosecution. I expect that candidate Yoon Seok-yeol will eradicate various types of corruption that still remain in our society, and at the same time successfully accomplish the tasks of reforming the prosecution and reorganizing the organization, which are the missions of the times," he said. The amendments to the party constitution, including the revision of Article 80 of the Democratic Party's constitution that could suspend the duties of the charged party officials pushed by Lee Jae-myung's line, and the establishment of a vote for all members of the Rights Party, were rejected by the Democratic Party's Central Committee. Both amendments were recognized as granting strong powers to Rep. Lee Jae-myung, who is certain to be elected as the party's representative, and caused a controversy over a Lee Jae-myung stalemate. The Democratic Party's Central Committee held the 6th Central Committee meeting on the morning of the 24th to propose amendments to the party constitution with these contents and voted. As a result of voting until 3 p.m., the amendment to the party constitution was rejected because 268 out of 566 members of the Central Committee supported it, recording a voter turnout of 47.35%. This is the first time that an agenda item has been rejected as it reached the 6th Central Committee. The key to this amendment is to amend Article 80 of the party constitution, which allows the Party Affairs Committee, not the Ethics Tribunal, of the Central Party to decide whether a party official has been prosecuted for unreasonable reasons such as political oppression. From the beginning of the discussion, it was criticized as an amendment to protect lawmaker Lee Jae-myung, who was running for the party's representative election, from legal risks. While Kim Hye-kyung, the wife of Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung, appeared at the police on the 23rd to investigate the alleged misappropriation of corporate cards, Lee Jae-myung's side used the expression 78,001 incident, causing controversy. Current affairs critic Yoo Chong-sun said on Facebook, "The name of the 78,001 case is amazing." He pointed out, many allegations are named 78,001 incident at once, and the logic of having only 78,001 is spreading. Yoo said, Rep. Jae-myung Lee's side used the word 78,001 incident. Supporters claim that it is political retaliation, saying, "Are you conducting an investigation with only 78,001? They criticized it as a fraudulent act of trying to deceive the people in a dishonest way. He continued, "The payment of 78,0001 for a meal for 3 people is a violation of the Election Act, so basically it is a matter that needs to be investigated strictly regardless of the amount. What is important is the fact that this 78,001 is only a small fraction of the allegations that Kim is being accused of misappropriating a corporate card." He continued, "The allegations of misuse of corporate cards related to Mr. Kim can only be summarized as they come to mind, but the Jae-myung provincial government has been involved in the purchase of beef, the purchase of sandwiches for 30 people, the payment of card swapping, the splintering of corporate cards, the suspicion of Korean beef card gang, and the payment of private food. Suspicions of mobilizing budgets from 5 departments and the payment of 3.18 million won at a fugu restaurant in front of Rep. Lee Jae-myung's house are numerous. The truth of many allegations should be covered up through investigation," he added. Rep. Lee Jae-myung said, "The food that be delivered was said to cost 1.8 million won for 16 cases. He said, "It's not a small amount of money, and it's a big mistake if he's engaged in illegal misappropriation." However, the wife paid 26,000 won for her share with an election card at a restaurant, and Secretary B and Public Informant A, who first disclosed the case, hid 78,001, the share of the 3 people, from the wife and the lawyer in charge of the conduct of the corporate card. I pointed out a recording of a call showing that it was made by the police, but the police did not explain it. B, who was identified as a key figure in the alleged misappropriation of corporate cards, was at the crossroads of arrest. Late on the afternoon of the 24th, the Suwon District Prosecutor's Office filed a request for a preliminary arrest warrant for B, a former Jae-myung Prosecutor's Office General Affairs Division, on charges of breach of the Public Official Election Act by the Jae-myung Nambu Police Agency's Anti-Corruption and Economic Crime Investigation Team. The substantive examination of the warrant against B is expected to be held early next week at the latest. B worked at the Provincial Government Office for 3 years from July 2018 to September last year, when Rep. Lee Jae-myung served as Jae-myung Governor. He is accused of paying for Kim's personal food, the wife of Rep. Jae-myung Lee's, with a Jae-myung corporate card or receiving an illegal prescription in the name of another person and delivering it to Kim while serving as Kim's assistant during this period. The amount of corporate card misappropriation is said to be worth 20 million won for more than 100 cases, which is more than 7 million to 8 million won in the 70 to 80 cases initially reported. When the allegations were raised during the last presidential election, B strongly denied that it was false. Afterwards, a civic group accused B of violating the Public Official Election Act, saying that he had published false information. The People's Power also filed a complaint against Kim and B in December of last year on charges of abuse of power and loss of the national treasury. In April, the police seized and searched the Jae-myung provincial office and Bay's home to secure materials necessary for the investigation and Bay's cell phone. In mid-May, they seized and searched 129 places, including restaurants where the Jae-myung corporate card was used, to collect evidence. The police have called B as a suspect on several occasions since the 3rd and questioned him. He later decided to apply for an arrest warrant after seeing that the allegations were substantiated. Lee Jae-myung's wife, Kim, appeared at the police as a suspect on the afternoon of the 23rd and was questioned for about 5 hours. It is known that Kim made a statement to the effect that she was not involved in the whole process of the allegation of misappropriation of corporate cards. The police plan to decide whether to send the case as soon as possible after completing the investigation based on the data obtained through the search and seizure and the statements of those involved in the case, including B. Shinseok Group will build a multi-stadium dome stadium where professional baseball games and K-pop performances can be held in Cheongna International City, Incheon. The city of Incheon announced on the 24th that Mayor Yoo Jong-bak and Shinseok Group Vice Chairman Jae-myung Jun met at City Hall and agreed to comprehensively cooperate on various projects being pursued in Cheongna, including the construction of a dome stadium. Vice Chairman Jang delivered a message to Mayor Yoo on the same day that he would build a dome stadium for baseball games in connection with the Starfield Cheongna construction project. Vice Chairman Chung said, "We will try to open the era of domed stadiums in Incheon ahead of other local governments through the swift promotion of the Cheongna Dome Stadium." Mayor Yoo responded, I hope that Incheon City and Shinsegae will cooperate with each other as partners for regional development. Incheon City and Shinsegae Group decided to promote the Starfield Cheongna construction project and the Dome Stadium construction project as soon as possible, and to work together to build an additional station for the Seoul Subway Line 7. Shinsegae Starfield Cheonggra, which is under construction at 165,000 square meters in Cheongnadong, Seogu, Incheon, is a complex shopping mall equipped with shopping, cultural, leisure and entertainment facilities. With the goal of opening in the second half of 2024, a total of 1.3 trillion won will be invested in the project, and about 4,000 jobs are expected to be created. The 20,000-seat Dome Stadium, which will be entered together in Starfield Cheongna, will be equipped with a professional baseball stadium and a complex cultural viewing facility that can host K-pop performances, e-sports international competitions, and exhibitions. In addition, a plan to add Starfield Cheongna Station to the Cheongna Extension Line of Seoul Line 7, which is scheduled to be completed in 2027, connecting Seok-Namdong, Seogu, Incheon to Cheongna International City Station on the Airport Railroad is also being pursued. The city of Incheon plans to start the detailed design within this year and support it so that construction can start next year. Kumho Tire has been requesting the city to change the use of the Gwangju factory site to commercial land since 2019 in order to relocate the old Gwangju factory built in 1974 to the Hampyeong Industrial Complex. Kumho Tire, which is suffering from financial difficulties to the extent that its cash holdings are less than 100 billion won, is difficult to cover the relocation costs. The plan is to change the use of the Gwangju factory site to commercial land and use this as collateral to secure 1 trillion won in relocation costs. Previously, Kumho Tire paid a contract deposit for the factory relocation site to the Korea Land and Housing Corporation LH in January to relocate its Gwangju plant to the Hampyeong Industrial Complex. However, the position of Gwangju is different. Since the position is that it is impossible to change the commercial land, only parallel lines are being maintained. The enforcement decree of the National Land Planning and Utilization Act stipulates that the conditions for the area subject to the pre-negotiation district unit plan designation are idle land or site for the transfer of large-scale facilities. In order to change the use of the site, the Gwangju factory must fall under idle land, so the current factory must be emptied or stopped. An official from Gwangju City said, currently, the Kumho Tire site is not idle land because the factory is in operation. It may be embroiled in a controversy over preferential treatment, he said. Right now, 1.2 trillion won is needed to relocate the factory and build a new one, but the liquidity is insufficient. In particular, according to the results of the remandatory judgment regarding ordinary wages, the overdue wage of 213.3 billion won must also be paid. The debt, worth 1 trillion won, will reach maturity next year alone. There is also concern about setbacks in Gwangju's Songjiang Station KTX Investment Leading District project. This project is to develop the Songjiang Station area into a logistics and transportation hub and an industrial, business, and residential convergence district. NVIDIA, a world-class semiconductor design company, has put out an earnings shock level. According to CNBC and others on the 24th, NVIDIA reported that it posted adjusted earnings per share of 51 cents in the second quarter of this year right after the market close. This is well below the market consensus of $1.26. Sales of $6.7 billion were sluggish, falling short of the forecast of $8.1 billion. The 2Q earnings shock was attributed to the sluggish game sector. Sales of the game business division fell 33% year-on-year to $2.04 billion. NVIDIA is a fabless company specializing in semiconductor design. Among them, the main focus is the graphics storage device GPU, which is used for game machines and virtual asset mining. As the pandemic subsided, outdoor activities increased and electronic purchases decreased due to concerns about a recession, resulting in sluggish sales of game consoles made by Nintendo and Microsoft. Demand for gaming chips has suddenly slowed due to headwinds from global macroeconomics, NVIDIA's chief financial officer, Khaled Kress, said in a conference call today. NVIDIA's third-quarter revenue of $5.9 billion also fell short of expectations. Wall Street's estimate was $6.9 billion. As a result, NVIDIA's stock has plummeted. As of 6:43 p.m. on the same day, it was down 4.55% in after-hours trading. NVIDIA has the largest market cap among semiconductor-related stocks listed on the New York Stock Exchange. It has been pointed out that there will be many people who give up welfare benefits themselves because the threshold for the basic livelihood security system is high, like the 3 mothers and daughters in Suwon, who were excluded from government welfare benefits. According to the Ministry of Health and Welfare on the 25th, 3 Suwon mothers and daughters, who were battling cancer and rare diseases, could receive 1,258,401 for a 3-person household and 3 million won for medical expenses per person if they met the income and property standards. She could have been a recipient of basic livelihood security systems such as livelihood and housing benefits, but the 3 mothers and daughters were not recipients. Why did they give up national welfare benefits? According to a study report on ways to strengthen access to the National Basic Livelihood Security System, submitted by the Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs to the Ministry of Health and Welfare, difficulty in applying is considered to be the main cause of the welfare blind spot. The report pointed out that there are problems such as giving up prematurely due to complicated procedures and difficulties in entering the system due to lack of understanding, the report said. In principle, the Basic Livelihood Security System is applied directly by household members, relatives, and other related persons of low-income households. You must submit identification documents as stipulated by law, Social Security benefit application, personal financial information, consent to provide financial information for dependents, and documents proving rental contract relationship. On the other hand, there are cases in which applications for basic livelihood security benefits are not recognized because they are not aware that they are their right. There are many cases where applicants vaguely compare with their acquaintances and then vaguely decide that they will not be selected and give up on supply. The report pointed out, even in an emergency, there are cases where people do not apply because they do not know the system well. It pointed out that, in particular, there are many cases of low-educated people, the elderly, and daily workers who do not fully understand the basic livelihood security system. The report said, we need to actively utilize organizations such as the Hope Welfare Support Group operated by the government to discover new recipients, emphasized. As a college freshman who lived in an orphanage could not bear the burden of self-reliance and made an extreme choice, his mother was with him on the final path. On the morning of the 24th, a cremation ceremony and a funeral mass were held at Yongnuk Park in Gwangju, a university student from an orphanage. Group A's biological mother attended this event and kept the place. The Gwangju Bukgu office has decided to support the funeral process of Group A, who is registered at the shelter, and it is known that the mother were contacted while inquiring about family and relatives. The mother said she did not want a separate funeral. As a result, officials at the shelter will complete the funeral process before placing them in an ossuary. Group A has been raised in an orphanage since childhood due to family strife. He lived in a shelter in the Jae-myung area and moved to a shelter in Gwangju after graduating from high school. After that, when he turned 18, he had to leave the facility regardless of the level of self-reliance. Then, after passing the university, Group A, who left the orphanage and lived in the dormitory, threw herself on the roof of a university in Gwangju around 4:25 p.m. on the 18th. Group A's body was found 3 days later by a nearby resident on the 21st. As a result of the CCTV analysis, the police confirmed that Army A was going up alone on the roof, and they planned to close the investigation, considering that he made an extreme choice out of fear of standing alone. In Group A's room, undrinked poison and soju and a note that read, "There are many books I haven't read yet," were found. Prior to his death, Group A told an orphanage official, "I'm afraid to stand alone," and it is known that he is experiencing financial problems by using a significant portion of the 7 million won he received when he left the orphanage. Police arrested a middle school student who beat a convenience store employee and store owner for not selling alcohol to him. During the assault, the schoolboy claimed that she was an unconvicted boy, but it turns out that she is not a scumbag boy by her birthday. On the morning of the 22nd, at a convenience store in Wonju-si, Gangwon-do, a male student in the 3rd grade of middle school made a riot because he did not sell alcohol to him. The female clerk noticed that the boy was a minor and refused her checkout. She says that the schoolboy threatened her by pushing the clerk against the wall. The male student then assaulted the shopkeeper by kicking it in the face. According to the store owner, the male student said, "I'm a young boy, so please hit me." The police at the time said that they did not confirm the identity of the perpetrator and did not arrest him. The perpetrator returned to the convenience store early in the morning of the next day and broke the law. He entered the convenience store checkout counter and beat the clerk, demanding that the CCTV footage of himself be erased. He then took the cell phone of the clerk with the assault scene the day before and fled. After receiving the report, the police rushed to the scene and arrested the boy. A police investigation revealed that the perpetrator was not a juvenile after his birthday this year. Instead of exempting her from criminal punishment, a juvenile age between the ages of 10 and under 14 receives a protective measure. As a result of the assault by her male student, the owner suffered serious injuries for 8 weeks, including a broken nose bone. He was said to be in danger of blindness due to a serious injury to one eye. The police have booked the assailant for injuries and are investigating the damage against the store owner and clerk. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida announced on the 24th that he would greatly ease the quarantine measures related to entry and exit. According to the Nihon Keizai Shimbun, Prime Minister Kishida held a video press conference on the afternoon of the same day and introduced measures such as exempting only those who received 3 doses of the vaccine from the request for a COVID-19 PCR negative certificate, which was required when entering and returning from the 7th of next month. It is to ease measures to prevent the virus from entering borders, airports, and ports. Japan has been demanding voice certificates issued within 72 hours prior to departure for inbound travelers and returnees, including Japanese. From the 7th of next month, only those who have completed the 3rd vaccination will be exempted from this obligation. Regarding the upper limit on the number of inbound travelers, Prime Minister Kishida said that it would be gradually relaxed in consideration of the domestic and international infection status and demands, and quarantine measures of major countries, so as to enable smooth entry at the level of the G7 countries, the 7 major countries. Korea currently requires all inbound travelers to submit a negative PCR test within 48 hours of departure or a negative rapid antigen test within 24 hours of departure. According to the Cheongju Sangsang police station on the 24th, on the afternoon of the 16th, at an intersection in Cheongju SI, a 2.5-ton truck collided with an SUV that was running normally. The SUV driver suffered serious leg injuries in the accident and was taken to hospital. When police arrived at the scene, the truck driver was nowhere to be seen. As a result of the police investigation, it was confirmed that the driver was a 35-year-old foreigner from Kazakhstan. It is known that Mr. A, who was an illegal resident and did not have a license, was hired by Mr. B, the owner of a truck, to carry waste until recently. The police have imposed a departure ban on Mr. A and have established a dedicated team to track his actions. In addition, the Cheongju Immigration and Foreigners Office booked a truck owner B, who hired illegal immigrants, on charges of violating the Immigration Control Act. After ordering 40 lines of gimbap, the police arrested a man who did not show up and bought the wrath of the owner of the kimbap restaurant by performing a no-show act. On the 24th, the Gangdong police station in Seoul is investigating the man A without detention on charges of obstruction of business by hierarchies. Person A is accused of not showing up after making a reservation for 40 lines of gimbap at a gimbap restaurant in Gangdong-gu, Seoul on the 22nd of last month, saying, "I will pay for the food later." Mr. A left his phone number at the kimbap restaurant, but it turned out that he stole someone else's number. Thank you for watching InGilBang News today. Please like and subscribe.